Hello, my name is Michael and I am speaking to you from the Verse. Now, if you're not sure what the Verse is, I encourage you to go to my website at rewritingtheverse.com, and there you can find out everything that I know about the Verse, as well as check out all the updates on there, both written and video. All the YouTube videos are on there, and you can find out more about the Verse, but also look at all the different documented past life regressions that I have done, which include rewrites. So I am a past life regressionist, and I have the ability to rewrite the endings of the past lives if it's warranted. If there is the opportunity to create a higher level outcome, I can do that. And so I have many documented regressions on my website, so go check them out. If you're interested in any private bookings, or group bookings, I am able to do that, and those services are also listed on the website, so you may want to look at that. Today's video is specific to the upcoming 1/11/2020 portal, and it is actually sandwiched between two different significant days as well. On January 10th, we're going to be having a lunar eclipse, which is also a full moon, and on the 12th we have the Saturn-Pluto conjunction happening. So we've got three powerhouse events going on in a 3-day period, and the 1/11 portal is right in the middle, so it obviously plays a key component in this overall energy boost that we're getting as we go into the second half of January. So big things are happening, and this is another key portal. So this video is specific to that day, and I have been doing past life regressions and rewrites specific to significant portals and or energy days. And so I did a past life regression tonight to identify one specifically through the collective of twin flames to heal, rewrite, and which heals it, and then gives us another boost as we go into this upcoming portal. So what I'm here to share with on this video is the details of the past life regression. I also have the information of how to rewrite it. However, I did not formally rewrite it yet. I wanted to do that here on the video. So at the end of this, you will actually see that go into place live. I think that's the main thing I want to share up front. So just sit back and relax and let me tell you the story, a twin flame story. And we'll see how this goes. So when I started past life regression, I asked about approximately how far back are we looking at? And they said that it's about 800 AD. And when I asked where it was located, they indicated that this is I'm not sure how far north you have to go to be an Eskimo, but it's at least a Native American group that is up north of Manitoba, Canada, up on the west side of the Hudson Bay. So that's where all this is happening, and that's the time period. So with that information, I will share what I was shown. So I'm seeing through the eyes of a man that is walking in very, very dark conditions. And at first I thought this must be like a sunrise, because the light that's coming from behind the mountains, which are only silhouetted, you can't really see them other than the silhouette, there's just barely enough light coming over those mountains to be able to see anything. And he's walking towards the mountains. And what I was given in that is that, it's probably close to midday actually, but because they're so far north and it's that time of year where they get so little sunlight, that this is daytime. But it's pretty much like twilight. When the sun is up at all, it's like twilight the whole time. But it does give enough light so that he can actually kind of see where he's going. He's definitely walking in snow. This is a part of the world where it probably never doesn't have snow at some point in time, because even in the warmer months, it's still pretty cold. So he's walking through snow and walking in the direction again of the sunlight, and he comes towards a campfire that he can see. A pretty good sized campfire. There's people sitting around it. And he comes up, and he's actually returning from, he sets traps. This is what he does, is one of the main things that he provides for the group, is he sets traps so he can bring back whatever meat he can catch. So he was successful at catching a rabbit. So as soon as he brings it back, they clean it, and it gets put over the fire to start cooking. And there's maybe, I want to say, 7 or 8 people around the fire. I got that there were 4 females there and the rest were men. And that there were 2 other men out on the little lake. Because it's iced over, they actually go out and they ice fish. So there's 2 out there, and then everybody around the campfire. Now, if there were children, I didn't see any, but if there were, they had their own little shelters right there next to the tree line that was right near the fire. And that would be where, if there were any kids, they might have been in there. And that was basically their permanent shelters. Each little couple or family so there was only like maybe 5 different shelters right there, and this is where they lived year round, pretty much. So after he brings the rabbit over, and that's on the fire now, he goes and he sits next to one of the women, which is his wife. So they're already together, and yes, this is a twin flame couple. So they're already together, already in a commitment. So this has been different than some of the other past life regressions I've done already, where a lot of it was about them finding each other and identifying each other. Well, these 2 are already together, already happily married, and yeah. So here we are, sitting around a campfire. It's a typical evening, or well, no, it's not evening. Sorry, it looks like it's evening, day, I guess, whatever. It's pretty typical how things are unfolding. And all of a sudden, you can hear a slight cracking sound out on the lake, and all of a sudden, there's yelling. So clearly something has happened out on the ice. So immediately the men jump up from the fire, and they start running out, or the best you can run on ice anyway. It was actually very difficult to move with any real swiftness on the ice to get out there, because clearly one or both men had fallen through, most likely. So the men ran out, the women stayed, by the fire, anxiously waiting for whatever news. And the men get out there, they do what they can to help. One fell in, and the other one was trying to hang on to him, and so he was pretty much wet too. And they were able to get the men out of that situation, and they were starting to bring them back, when all of a sudden, you could see the fire, and you could see the women over there, and now, well, all the men are out there on the ice. They can see 3 of the women huddled together by the fire, scared, because the other woman, which was the man's wife, the twin flame, was standing between them and a grizzly bear. Now, I had been told already before that scene even happened that the grizzlies were the biggest concern of all the wild critters out there that could attack. They were always on alert for bears. And they had spears, and that was like the best thing that they could do to try to defend themselves. Well, even though there were spears there, the women sure didn't know what to do with them. So there they are. There's this humongous grizzly bear, and he's, I don't know what you call it. It's like a roar. You know how it's more than just it's growling at her, his wife. It's actually roaring at her, right? About to rip her head off, basically. And the image is like surreal for him. One, because he can't run. None of the men, even though now they're seeing what's going on, none of them can really run to get there. They're doing their best to move across the ice very, unfortunately, slowly to be able to help. And he sees his wife standing there, just standing right there in front of the bear. And he's, like I said, roaring at her and furious, and he wants the meat. And hey, a human would be a nice snack too, right? He's willing to eat whatever, right? And he's just horrified that he can't get there to help, and oh my God, she's gonna die, right? Well, then she does something. She lifts up her arm, and again, she's covered in furs, like everybody's covered in furs, even little furry mittens, you know. I saw those mittens even on him earlier. She raises her arm up slowly like this, and the bear stops moving. He stops roaring. He just stops. He's just staring at her. And he watches his wife start to walk towards the bear. What is she doing? You know, he was already horrified, and now he's like, oh my God, no, what are you doing? He's like, oh no, she's really dead. You know? Yeah, and he wasn't laughing, of course. Just like watching this unfold in front of him and sure that his wife is about to be mauled. So she walks up very slowly with her arm out to the bear. And the bear allows her to actually touch him right here on the forehead. And she just stands there with her hand on his forehead for, I don't know, at least a minute probably. Doesn't say anything to it or do anything other than that. But then the bear slowly turns and walks back into the trees and disappears. Everybody obviously totally taken aback by this. They're still trying to scramble across the ice and drag those poor guys that had fallen into the lake. All this. Everybody finally gets back around the fire. He runs up to his wife finally and is looking at her, and oh my God, you know, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? And she's still just standing there in a daze. She's in a daze. So he finally kind of guides her, carries her, whatever, over, because she's starting to go limp a little bit, over to the fire. Sat down by the fire. There's still a lot of havoc, and everybody's trying to, you know, well, that was scary, and also this, you know, this guy that fell in the ice, he needs attention. All these things, right? So it took a little bit of time for everything to calm down. And that whole time, she's just kind of sitting there in a daze. And he's trying to kind of rub her arms on the sides or whatever. Not that she was necessarily cold, but just to kind of like bring her back. She was really kind of out of it the rest of the time. And once things calmed down, nobody really said anything about the bear situation. So eventually, he and his wife, they go in their little shelter for, I don't know if it was the night or day. Quite honestly, it's hard to tell with the light the way it was, but yeah, takes her in there, and he finally says, you know, what happened? Now that she's a little bit more alert, what happened? Why did you do that? And basically she said, I don't know. I just, in the moment, I just had to do something. I needed to, I'm trying to remember exactly, I mean, I've already seen this, but I'm trying to get her words right. Basically that she was wanting to show the bear what would happen if he did any more, if he tried to attack them. And that even if he had hurt her or whatever, he was going to die. Because all the men would have finally gotten on the shore, grabbed the spears and started stabbing it, right? And it would have died. And she said she didn't want it to die. She didn't want it to die. That's why she communicated with it that it was time for it to go, and showed it basically what was going to happen to it if it didn't turn around right then. Well, he had already known for the entire time he knew her that she always had a soft spot for animals. Absolutely. She really had a hard time even cooking a rabbit because especially rabbits, she had a really soft spot for rabbits. So unfortunately he caught a lot of rabbits and, things like that for food. And she understood that it was necessary for survival, but that doesn't mean that she liked it. And that she always honored, the spirit of the animal and what all, even bears. So, but yeah, that was what was guiding her, like automatic pilot in that situation. She said she wasn't really that afraid of it. It just, she didn't even quite know why it happened the way it happened. So, okay, well, that was, wow, well, hopefully that won't have to happen again kind of thing, and they sleep and whatever. But the next day, or whenever they do finally come out of the shelter, and there's a few people around the fire, they sit in their usual spots. Not that they have assigned seats, but it kind of ends up that way. And he noticed that the woman that was sitting next to her, that always sits next to her, kind of scooted over a little bit the other way when she sat down. Interesting. And so they watched as more people kind of gathered around the fire, and people are not, they're not really talking, or they're kind of just whispering to each other, and there's not a lot of usual dialogue going on. People aren't really making eye contact with either one of them, her or him. And this is really, got people acting rather strange. Or, I don't know if strange is the right word, maybe more showing their true colors. They live with these people for years and always considered them friends. And now, none of them were talking to either one of them. And after a day of that, they were both getting concerned. If this continues, we can't live here, basically. We can't live with people that obviously they don't want us here. If this is how they're going to be, let's see how the next day goes. But if this doesn't stop, nobody approached them and wanted to talk anymore about it. It was just clear that they thought she was weird. Now, maybe, unfortunately, it's a lot like this day and age, where if something happens that you don't understand, you immediately make it something bad. Evil, witchcraft, whatever. And that's apparently what they did. So these people who were their friends and obviously their communal family, no, they were kicked to the curb pretty quickly because of this. And so I think by the third day, it was pretty clear this was not going to change. He had witnessed her sitting with the other women, doing whatever they normally do during their times by the fire. And the other three women were talking amongst themselves and ignoring her. And his wife was a very good woman. She didn't deserve that. Up until that point, they'd all been friends. There's just no reason for it. So if that's the way they were going to treat her, then, there's no reason for them to stay. And that's ultimately what they decided. They decided this was not a place that they wanted to be anymore. And that they had heard that over or on the Hudson Bay, excuse me, getting me a drink. They had heard that there was a pretty large colony over there, and that surely over there they could find a way to fit in, do whatever it takes to be a part of that community and start over. But in the meantime, they were going to have to travel alone in snowy condition with bears around, right? Bears everywhere. That was always the biggest nemesis no matter where you were, you always had to have your spears and you had to be ready to deal with a bear. And that's what they did. They started their trek. They were living off of a lake, and so they followed the lake to the east side and followed the rivers and streams that ultimately led all the way to the Hudson Bay. And really on the way, it was pretty much built a very, very minimal shelter, have a little fire, catch a few fish because they stayed near the rivers, and if there was an opportunity to trap anything. And this is what they did. And some days they couldn't get very far because of the weather, some days farther, but always snow. Always having to be careful of where you're stepping. You just don't know when you're going to step in a hole or whatever under the snow. So it was a constant, slow journey. But they actually did okay. You know, they didn't really have any real run-ins with bears, or significant anyway. And they made their way. Well, all of a sudden, the next scene is bright light. Went from twilight, constant twilight, to bright light, and what I got was that it was much, well, not much later, but later in the season. So if that was maybe winter time or something, this is now spring. At least there's now much more sunlight, longer periods of light, whatever. So it's not that they're still not walking in snow. They are, but it's at least there's more light and they can make it farther because of that. So this is when they finally arrive at the Hudson Bay, where they actually arrive at the main shoreline on the south side. Well, on the other side of the river inlet, they're on the south side of that, basically. And this is where there's a significant community right there as soon as they get there. Now, I got the word, or the number, like over 1,000 people. And it was very much a permanent, you know, these shelters had been there for a long time. These people had been there for a long time. So this was a very established community of, again, whether or not consider Eskimos or Native Americans. I'm not sure for how north you have to be an Eskimo. But anyway, this is where they found themselves. So they were really excited just to see all that water. It was like seeing an ocean, right? Because the Hudson Bay is huge. You know, it was like being at the ocean and really admiring all this water that they'd never seen before. I mean, they'd seen lakes, but this is different. So anyway, yeah, they arrived, they're happy, this is it. This is what they've been trekking at least a few months for. And here they are. Yay! This is where they get to set up shop and, you know, start anew. And they really are wanting to start a family. So this is another part of their choices here, is they really want to settle down and start a family. So they're not sure, though. This is a huge community. How, you know, this is not like a little tribe to come into. This is a huge established community, and they finally find a fisherman to ask, like, we're new, we want to move here. Where should we go? Who should we talk to about this? So he points somewhere in town, and that's where they go. And what I got, it was the little place that they went was almost like an employment office, for lack of better words. They would help you find some sort of job that you could do to contribute to the community, and also maybe help set you up with like where you can stay. Great, that's what they needed. So his wife went to a woman over here, and in a separate room, he went and spoke to a man. So these were the people that they spoke to get set up with their jobs. And he was offered the position of being a hunter. So even though he said explained all his great experience of trapping, and that was his form of hunting that he was really an expert at, that's not what they needed. They needed somebody to go out there and bring in the kills, the larger game. And that was a position that was needed, and even though he didn't have much experience, he'd be trained in it, and that's where he was going to be working. Which, right off the bat, he didn't want to do, not only because he didn't really know how to do it or want to do it, but it was going to require that he be gone for days at a time. Because basically these groups went out and they didn't come back unless they had a big kill. So he was going to be gone for large periods of time, and he didn't like the idea of being away from his wife that long. But here they are. They need to establish themselves. They need to prove that they are. It's like they're going to have a probation period where they can prove that they will be productive community members before they are officially really accepted in the community, something like that. So, and this was a job that was available. And he really didn't give him any other options. Now his wife is offered a job of being like a cook, basically, like for the community, making large amounts of food for the various people in the community. Now, I mean, she was an okay cook, but did she want to do that? No. Not sure what she shared as far as what she wanted to do, but that wasn't it. But once again, it's the only thing offered to her. And it, again, a part of needing to be a part of a productive part of the community. These were the conditions of coming in and living there, which seemed really generous as far as, hey, they're offering us jobs and they're offering us a place to stay, which ended up being pretty much a shack, a little shack, kind of in the back, you know, kind of on the Skid Row, actually. It was, back in the ghetto, whatever, anyway. But it was shelter. And when you didn't have any, it sounded better than nothing. So, by the end of that day, they had a place to stay, they had jobs. Okay. So, sure enough, the next day, he's immediately taken out, I don't know, he might have had one day of training, basically, before they actually went out on a hunt. But it was pretty soon where he had to leave for a few days and go out and do his thing. And she was having to do, cook all day, and that was her job. And, and so it started. And not surprisingly, because, well, they very much loved each other and did not want to be separated from each other. It was immediately difficult for them to be apart that long. And my understanding is that she pretty much cried every day, whether he was there or not, but definitely cried about the situation and missing, and just ultimately nothing about this felt right. It didn't feel right, not even her job, just, and the women, actually, what I got was that they were pretty much seen as like hillbillies coming out of the mountain kind of thing, where they clearly weren't from there. I mean, they kind of stood out. Even the furs that they were a little bit more primitive in how they were put together. I mean, people could tell that these were not locals, and that they treated them that way. She pretty much, the women ostracized her that she worked with. They didn't want to be friends with her, So right away, she's already being treated differently. And he, he's out there with some guys that, I guess they're nice enough, but things aren't really gelling there either as far as any kind of social connection. But, it's really at this point doing what you have to do to get established, to pass whatever probation period, and ultimately settle down. And, so after several hunts, he's come back, and she's upset, and she's, very sensitive. She's a very sensitive person. But what they told me earlier was she was not weak. There's nothing weak about her. She was hardworking, a very strong person, but just had a soft spot, just like she did for the bunny rabbits, She had a soft heart. And when it came to him, she missed him very much and didn't want to be away from him like that. And so, it was impacting both of them, especially the physical separation. So, it came to a point where he came back from a hunt where they had killed a bear. Could have been a grizzly, probably a grizzly, but anyway, he came back with a pretty big gash across this arm. And from, obviously being swiped. And if it can swipe you here, it can swipe you here, and, whatever. Obviously very close. It was a dangerous situation. This is the bears and the moose. Maybe, well, not elk or whatever, the deer and the lower, whatever. The bears and the moose brought in the most money. Or not money. Well, yeah, whatever bartering they do, it brought in the most bartering power to bring home those level of animals. So it makes sense that a lot of times, even if they had a choice, oh, there's a deer over there, they might keep going and looking for the bear. They would be purposely tracking the bear, or maybe a moose too, but because that's what brings in the most. So yeah, he came back with a pretty bad wound, and as she's helping clean it, put a new bandage on it, whatever, she's crying again. She cries a lot. She worries about him every time he leaves. But this time she's really, this is too much. This is too close. You could have died, whatever. And it may not have been the very next one, but ultimately one night, the night before he's supposed to leave for his next hunt, she wakes up from a dream. And in the dream, she sees that they've got a bear cornered, and that he actually gets mauled by the bear and dies. And she's so distraught by this dream. And, he's saying, it's just his dream. It's just, no, it's not. It's going to happen. All that stuff. You can't go. Please don't go. Don't go. And I know something bad's going to happen. Don't go. And of course, he don't want to go either. But once again, he has to think about, if he doesn't go, he's going to lose his job. If he loses his job, they lose their place in the community. That's simple. And, as much as he really wants to honor her request, he had hoped that eventually he could put in for another job where he didn't have to go. Well, one, he didn't want to hunt anyway, but ultimately where he could stay in town and not have to be away so much. But at this point, he didn't have that option. So as much as he wants to honor her, he eventually has to leave, because at daylight is when they leave. So he's walking out the door and leaving her basically, crying and begging as he walks out the door. He feels horrible, of course. And actually, she doesn't go to work that day. Because she actually is very psychic, and she knew something was going to happen. And sure enough, there they are. They've got a bear cornered. I believe it's another grizzly. It's big, whatever it is. It's huge, and it's brown. They've got one cornered in a little bit of a little ravine, so it's got rock behind it, and they're all fanned out in front of it. And only now does he realize what's really happening. Basically, what I understood was that when you're a newbie coming into town, this society is set up to make sure those people get the crap jobs. These are the people that are, they're not from your clan anyway, so they're kind of subhuman. And so if you want to give them the really bad jobs that nobody else wants to do, or put them in positions like the one he's in where it's extra dangerous, well, that's where you put them. So your own people aren't the ones that are having to do that. And what he realized was, it felt very, I want to say like Vietnamish, as far as this is just what I felt. I got that energy. Like, if you're a new guy getting off the helicopter, and these guys have been out there for years, who's going to be put in the most risky situations? Now, these guys, they know what the most risky position is, and they're going to tell you to do it. They're going to put you in that position. You don't know any better. And if you happen to die, oh well, as long as it wasn't one of them. This is one of the reasons why those guys didn't warm up to him at all. Never really offered any kind of real connection with him, because he was just, what I got was bear bait. He was bear bait. And this is why these positions continually opened up in the hunter jobs, right? You'd have this core group that knew exactly what they were doing, and then they would fill this other position with new people. So anyway, here he is. He's the one on the far side against this rock wall, and then the other, there's about 5 or 6 of them all the way across here. And basically, they've got this bear cornered. They've got their spears, out and ready. And he notices, too little too late, but he notices that right at the moment where they're about to start stabbing it, the guys to his left take a few steps over. What the? And then they're basically like, 1, 2, 3, like they're all supposed to stab at the same time, and he stabs it when he's supposed to, but nobody else does. Crap. Right. Well, now all, the bear is focused on him. And so as it starts to attack him is when they start stabbing it and are able to kill it. But not until after he's already bleeding to death on the ground. This was all planned. Now, if it had survived, that would have been fine, but oh well, if he died, we still got the bear. And more money for us, right? Don't have to share with them. And that's how he dies. Now, his wife is psychic, like I said, and she actually feels this, and she knows he's died. So when they do finally come back and he's not with them, somebody from that employment office comes to the little shack to tell her that he died. And, by the way, you didn't come into work, so you've lost your job and you're out. You need to be out like today. Get your stuff. You're out. Ultimately, she goes out into the woods and commits suicide. She was already extremely depressed anyway because of what was happening. And she commits suicide by actually sleeping out in the cold overnight, knowing very well she was going to freeze to death, which is exactly how it went. So, Twin Flames, another tragic ending. So that's pretty much what happened in the first version. So after I see a past life regression, get the details, then I ask, where can I intervene? Where can I go into the timeline and do something a little different that would create a higher level outcome? So what they showed me is we're back at the little employment office. And, the people are being so nice, just handing over these wonderful jobs that nobody wants and offering them a shack to live in. Wonderful. These people are so generous, right? We know now, absolutely not generous, using these people that come in not knowing the setup there in that community. So, anyway, they're back in the employment office. And like I said earlier, as these jobs are being offered, neither one of them are liking what they're hearing. And really, he was very concerned early, right? The moment he realized that these hunting groups were going to be out for days at a time, he immediately knew this is not what he wanted. Not only would she have a hard time with him being gone so long, he didn't want to be gone that long either. I mean, these are young, in love, twin flames. They don't want to be apart. Not like that. So he's being very strongly encouraged. Oh, you really need to take this job. I mean, there could be another person in the door right after you that would snatch this up, and then there won't be anything left for you. You really need to commit to this now, right? A lot of pressure. And he just felt so, just the idea of being gone that long, So he doesn't succumb to the pressure. He says, I really need to talk to my wife. Can I have time to go talk to my wife? Well, if you really want to, just know that this could go at any moment, but okay. So he goes over to the other little room, pokes his head in. Hey, I need to talk to you. Have you committed to anything yet? No? Okay. Let's go out and talk about this. So he explains, they both explain to each other what they've been offered and how neither one of them like this deal at all. She's really glad that he did not necessarily accept that job. One, She expressed how concerned safety-wise she would be for him, let alone being gone so much. But what do we do? What do we do? We came all this way. We can't and don't want to go back to those people we left. So what do we do? We're totally at a loss here. So they decide to do, they decide to go talk to the local shaman or medicine person. Kind of like going and, like if you went to a church or something to ask for guidance, well, this is what they're doing there. They asked where the nearest shaman person was. Oh, we'll go out there on the other outside of town right there. That lady's pretty good. Okay. So on the way, they actually fish a little bit so that they can bring something in exchange for services. They caught 3 fish, bought 3 fish with them, and come to the door, and the lady sitting on the other side of the fire, she's fairly elderly, and blind. And so as they walk in, they're like, we need some guidance. I've brought you some fish, in exchange. And the woman, even though she can't necessarily see with her physical eyes, is fixated on his wife, just looking in that direction the moment they walk in. Okay, whatever. And as he's saying, hey, I've got some fish for you, she's like, yeah. Like, set him down, and you two sit down, right there by the fire. Tell me what you want or need. And so they explain the story. And the woman asks pointedly, so what happened that had you leave that other clan? And they tell the story about the bear. And the woman is absolutely elated. And she said, oh my goodness, I've been waiting for you. She says, my dear, the reason you could talk to that bear, the reason the bear did not attack you, is you are from the Bear Clan. Bear Clan? And only now is he noticing all the bear claws, all the bear totem whittled statues or whatever of bears in the little hut. She's from the Bear Clan too. And so this woman goes on to say, yes, it's very clear to me that yes, you're from my clan. My clan is the Bear Clan, and they are sacred animals, and we have very special relatedness to the bears. They are us, basically, something along those lines. And she says, you have abilities, don't you? And his wife kind of says, yeah. She says, and you haven't told him about all of them, have you? No. And she's sitting there like, hey, what else can you do? And she says, my dear, this is how she talks to, this elderly woman. She's like, my dear, I have been waiting for you. And I believe you are meant to be my apprentice and ultimately my successor. And she's explaining this, that she would be willing to take her under her wing, teach her everything she knows, and groom her to ultimately take her position in the community when the time comes. And that it would be perfect if I was a part of this too, because, firewood still needed to be gotten, could definitely use some fresh fish and some trapped animals, for food. And if we just build a little shelter right there next to hers, then everybody's contributing. The community in general won't ostracize them, because they are, if they're contributing to her and she contributes to the community, then it's all good. And his wife was just elated at the opportunity, not just about being able to expand her abilities and with somebody that knows these things, but also she's already feeling like she belongs. This woman already, you can kind of feel the family energy there. And even he was feeling it. You know, he's not from the Bear Clan, but he's feeling the love, right? And ultimately, that's what they choose to do. And there are a few other people there, right there near where the woman lives too. They're also the Bear Clan that have also found their way there. And, met her and ultimately realized they were all part of the same clan. And so they also live there too. And all the women, apparently it's a matriarchal thing, all the females have some psychic abilities, absolutely. And all the men are kind of like he is, where, well, they don't have the psychic abilities, but they're able to provide everything else. And so they're definitely, now they really are kind of like a family. Both the women and the men actually really have a strong bond. It is more of a family. It's no longer just living with other people. It is a strong family bond. So he gets to do what he's always loved to do. He gets to trap. He doesn't mind fishing at all either, but he's definitely good at the trapping, and it can help not bring for her, but also to the, it's like this little sub-community. They actually provide a lot for themselves. They aren't really that dependent on the rest of the community to meet their needs. They can do their own trapping. It is basically like very similar to what they had out there, only now this is with people that truly they're connected with. And it's her skills, instead of it ostracizing, instead of her abilities ostracizing them, it actually has brought them into this tight-knit community. So he gets to do what he loves. He gets to be with his wife all day long, really. I mean, they could see each other at any time. And she gets to not only have the experience of really belonging to, which she was very much missing, but also, again, her skills being lifted to their maximum level over time. Win-win for everybody. And in fact, because this lady's abilities, this medicine woman's abilities were so helpful to the overall community, I mean, she warned them about upcoming storms, any kind of threats from outside clans. If they were having trouble finding animals, oh, well, go over there. You'll find a deer over there. Or there's a school of fish over there. Go over there. So she was very helpful in a lot of different ways, and healing. She definitely could heal. So all these things made her actually, was like a little bit of a celebrity in the community because of that. So they went from being the low-level grunge people coming into town getting the worst jobs to now they're actually considered part of maybe the upper echelon now and not treated in negative ways. So, and eventually, yeah, her status is going to go way up as she becomes the next medicine woman. And all it took was, not give in to the desperation of the situation that almost led them down the path, again, of things that would tear them apart. So that's one of the main things I'm seeing in this rewrite that's about to be rewritten. It's not formal yet, but it's not just about being with your twin flame, because we come together to do higher level works as well. We need to find the right people. We need to find the right situations, and then it'll blossom and it will take off. And you see how much these people had to go through to get to the right person and the right opportunity. And they found it. So I do believe now, with this being maybe the main message of this past life regression, this is about, again, the 1/11/2020 portal. It's about now starting to really hone in on exactly what we're meant to do together. And that both sides of the partnership need to have their own skills, their own jobs, their own things that call to them alongside being with their partner. If one is sacrificing for the other or not fully realizing their own dreams and their own desires, it's ultimately not going to support what they're here to do. So this is another level of making sure you listen to guidance and you follow your way to the right opportunities. So I think that's the highlights. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shift and rewrite that timeline right now. So this is rewriting itself at 800 AD. So rewriting in that timeline and every timeline that's happened since then, which is about 1200 years, which is a lot of lifetimes, even just for those two souls, let alone everybody else. It's all flipping now. I'm feeling the energy start to come in now. It's all shifting. I can feel the vibration is lifting. It's coming in. Once again, this is helping the overall Twin Flame Collective, Divine Masculine, Divine Feminine Collective. It's helping them find each other. It's helping them find the right opportunities. Win-win for everybody. Everybody being able to live out their truth, their skills, the things that they feel passionate about. Nobody needs to sacrifice anything. Allow yourself to be guided to the right people, the right opportunities. Still very powerful. I can feel that energy really surging. So many times for lots of good reasons, we chose to sacrifice. And ultimately, it's no more sacrificing. That's what I'm getting. Compromise is one thing, and that can be workable, maybe, not all the time, but definitely no more sacrificing. No more people giving up their dreams for somebody else's. It has to work for everybody. And I'm still feeling that energy. So, thank you everybody who stayed this long enough to watch this and experience this with me. I appreciate that. If you enjoyed what you saw and want to see more of this, please like, share, and subscribe below. And I'd really like to hear people's comments, what you thought about this, if this relates to anything you're experiencing right now. And just be prepared. These next few weeks in January are going to be power-packed, and Twin Flames are moving forward at a whole nother level. So I'm excited to see what happens. I will most likely be doing another past life regression within the next few days, because we do have the Saturn and Pluto conjunction happening on January 12th, which will be another boost to what we're already working on here. So look for another video coming soon. Thank you, everybody. Peace and joy. I'll talk to you soon.